let's move to the next slide, inventory search from the utility. Don't know if anybody knows this or how many people would know this, but if I want to just look at my inventory from the home ribbon or home menu option, I can select an inventory search. When I bring up my inventory search, the defaults now are going to, again, always be the default or top profit center. I don't have a definition because I haven't drawn this from anywhere. This is just a go look at inventory. But another default in here is going to be a quantity of 1. So I would have to fill out any parameters that I would want. An example, let's just do this. Let's just say we're going to look for oil filters. And you know what? I don't even have to type the whole word because it'll do a partial search. And maybe all I want is oil filters that Wix is the manufacturer. Okay? When I search on this, okay, it's going to retrieve anything that meets this criteria. Any inventory that's entered under the Automotive Service Profit Center that has oil FIL in the description, that has Wix in the manufacturer, that has a quantity of 1. So you can see each of the descriptions have at least the oil FIL, the manufacturer is Wix, and you can see my in-stock will have a minimum quantity of 1. Now all this is a search, okay? All this is, it's not going to go anywhere. It's just a search. If we go back up to the top, you have, and again, you have the ability to sort by any of the column headers. That's standard with all the inventory lists, okay? Another feature, which I don't know if everybody knows, is I do have the ability to take these columns and move them. So I can organize this however I want. So if I want cost, mine, and then MSRP, I can organize these columns, and it will remember these settings on this computer. So you have utilities that you can use. From the inventory material groups, again, we have the ability to add a new inventory item. We have the ability to take an existing item and edit. And we have the ability to do inventory reorders, which we will talk about in a little more detail later in this webinar. The display pricing stays the same. So I can put 1, I can switch, or I can put as many price levels as I want. And again, the ability to show the on-order quantities. From the action menu group, we have the column choosers, the reset. I have the ability to export this list to an Excel file. So anything I've got on my list, I can export that to Microsoft Excel. And I'll tell you a really nice feature with this is a great way if you wanted to do your inventory counts. If you exported your list out to Excel in the Excel format, it will have an extra column for current counts. So you can print that list off or take it out on a tablet, enter your counts, and we're going to be talking about how to do inventory recounts again in one of the future webinars. And then, of course, we have the ability over here to go ahead and do other searches. So this is from the inventory materials. Let's just go back to the presentation, do a quick review. Inventory material searches, your parameters are open. Your defaults are going to be quantity of 1 and your default profit center, but as you see, you can search on any of the other parameters. Search display and sorting options, sort by column header, move or reorganize the columns. From the inventory materials groups, the add, display, and show on order quantities, and from the action group, the column chooser, export to Excel, prints, emails, and PDFs. Hopefully you guys are picking a few things up from this. The last area we're going to look at searching inventory is actually from the setup inventory materials. So let's just drop back into the software. Okay, I'm going to go to setup. As you guys know, setup is on your main ribbon. Okay, it's dropped down here because I've already got it open. And let's talk a little bit about how we search from here. So what I'm going to do, again, 2 ways you can maneuver through this list. One is you can do the look for the needle in the haystack, which some people prefer. Or if I know I want to go to inventory, I can just type out a couple letters of inventory and it will search on whatever I type in this search box. Inventory materials. So you're going to be familiar with these search parameters now because you've seen them on 2 other screens, but your search is going to basically say default profit center, and in the setup it's going to look to the it's going to look to the first service category underneath that profit center, and you'll notice nothing else is filled out. And take note that here we can look at all inventory, whether they're quantities or not. Okay, so anything we enter into here. So maybe what we do is just go in, I'll just do an air fill, and it's going to bring back air filters. Oddly enough, remember, I only looked under this service category. So if I want to look at for all of my air filters, then what I would do is make a quick change and say I want to look across all service categories, and when I refresh the search, you're going to see all the air filters and anything that has air fill in it, which would be a cabin air filter. Okay. Again, from this area, we have the ability to go in and organize the columns by any one of the column headers. Okay. We also have the ability to move the column headers around. So again, if I wanted to move this column over, that's entirely up to you. Okay, so this would be the results on my search that come back. I want to talk for just a minute about another search, which is going to be a search by part number, which might be beneficial to everybody. When I search by part number, it's really search by part numbers, because what this feature allows me to do is enter a series of part numbers, and then it will only retrieve those part numbers. So the way this would work is and I'm just going to use what's on my list here, I'm just going to put in the part number. Let's do a CA10118. Now I'm going to need, I think they call it a delineator, I'm going to need something between. So a comma will work or a space will work. And let's do another one, a CA8911, okay, another space, and let's do this last one down here, a CA1065. So what I'm telling the software is I want to locate these 3 part numbers. And when I initiate that search, one of them didn't come up. I probably typed it in wrong. But now you see I can search by any part numbers that I enter into this screen. Okay, so if I'm just looking for a couple of certain numbers, this would be a great way to do it. So don't forget your part number search up here.
Doug, I just want to add something there.
Sure.
So another way that it can be used is basically if you have a list of part numbers from a spreadsheet in one column, you can copy all those part numbers from the spreadsheet and paste them in there, and it works the same way. So if they're all in a column, it will work as well.
Okay.
Which that's typically one of the biggest uses if you have a specific list of parts outside of the program and you want to see those and do a batch update on them. You can just copy those in there and it will give you them.
Okay. All right, so like Jeff says, there's even the copy and paste feature here, which I didn't even think about. So it seems to be that that's quite popular. And remember, any of your search parameters in the background also. Let's take a look at some of the options again, and I'll start to repeat myself again, but from the action menu group, again, we have the ability to add a new item, edit an existing item, or delete an existing item if I want to remove it. We have the ability to create inventory reorders. Again, we'll deal with that a little bit later in the show today. And batch updates, and we have the ability to import from a list of inventory, which would be an Excel format. And this will be covered in one of the future webinars we're going to use. Column chooser, reset column, display, and here's another new one, price as of. So if you're looking at your inventory pricing, you can identify a date. I'll just mention where this comes in handy is when we do our next webinar, there are some advanced pricing features which allow you to say, as of this date, change the pricing to this. So we have the ability to build in An example, let's just say on March 1st, I want to change all the sell prices on my air filter. I have the ability to do that, and if I did have that set up, then if I went up to March, then it would probably be able to show me what my price changes are going to be. Again, we'll talk more about those features a little bit later. Let's just go back and bring our search back up. Okay, and then of course we have the ability to do an export to Excel. So again, we have the ability to take the information from the inventory and export that out to an Excel format, which makes it pretty easy to work with. Let's go back to our presentation and just do a quick review here. Okay, so search parameters, fairly standard. You guys have seen a bunch of that. Your menu group allows you to search and reset and search by part numbers, multiple part numbers. Search results and display options, sorting by your column headers, moving and reorganizing columns, and the action menu group for add, edit, delete, inventory reorders, your column choosers, price levels, and price as of, and of course the ability to export to Excel. Next slide, inventory material search setup. So how do we set up good searches? If you find yourself struggling to find the things you're looking for, well, it may well be that we need to go back and look at what do we need to do to make sure these things are set up so that I can easily search my inventory. I'm just going to bring up an ad, and we're going to talk about some of the things that make the search work best for you. From the work order, remember that your system is going to default to the first profit center. If you have more than one profit center, then keep in mind you're always going to have to switch that search to the other profit center. What I do often when I do the implementation for shops, if they have inventory that belongs in other profit centers, what I will do very often is I'll stay under the automotive service profit center, but what I will do is I will add a category simply to store that inventory. In this case, this is what I've done. Okay, I put in a service category, excuse me, simply to store my tires so that I don't have to switch profit centers. So a good idea to help you with good searches is to enter the items in the first profit center to eliminate having to switch that. Set up a definition. If we go into the system and we look for part terminologies, and this is going to be another discussion we're going to need to dig into a little bit, but definitions help in several different ways. Matching things up when you search inventory from the service package line. It also has a big impact on your catalog searches. So I'm going to put in a decent definition. So use general terms, don't be too specific, and in the terminology database, what you're going to see is there's probably, about 100 items on this list that the part guys have to deal with on an oil filter, but I happen to know I'm looking for an engine oil filter, so I'll use that definition. When I enter a definition, it's automatically going to copy down to the description. Now I have the ability to override or edit that, but descriptions are also another search area. So, acronyms, abbreviations can often mess with your search results. Use a good part number. A part number that normally your suppliers will recognize as best, but if you don't have a part number, use something that you'll remember and try to stay consistent with part numbers and descriptions so that you can always look these items up. Other things that create a good search are going to be the manufacturer, code, size, and grid. If you'll remember, if we just focus back on the search parameters in the background, so you can use any one or combination of these parameters. So if you don't have anything in there, then we can't search on it. And lastly, to keep your searches good, because often the software will look for only items that have a minimum quantity of 1, okay? Make sure you keep good stocking levels. Keep your stocking levels up to date. Okay, so if we just do a quick review, add the item under the default profit center. Set up a definition for your automatic searches. use good part numbers, use good and consistent descriptions. If you want to enter a manufacturer code or size, it is a search parameter, and keep stocking quantities up to date. So guys, here's what we've covered so far. We've covered what is searchable. So all the items that are highlighted or boxed in on the left versus or in addition to the in-stock quantities are all setting up your search parameters to make sure you find what you're looking for. Let's talk a little bit about fractional quantities. Okay, so if I go back to the software, let me just take you to a work order out here, and let's talk a little bit about fractional quantities. Notice I've got an oil change on this vehicle, and let me lift it up a little bit here, a 2005 Ford Taurus. Take note that you see 4.5 quarts of oil, and you see 5W20. This is coming from a new feature in the software under Utilities called Fluid Capacities. We have the ability, when everything is set up right, meaning you're using a catalog vehicle and your service package definitions are set up properly, the software is going to automatically tell me how much oil this vehicle holds. Now in my case, let me explain. I've got both liters and quarts because I train and set up databases in the US and Canada. Okay, you can have both, but normally if you're in Canada, we set your database to look up liters. If you're in the US, we set it up to look up quarts. But that can be changed, or you can have both of them. So the software is going to automatically tell me that vehicle holds 4.5 quarts of oil. It's going to give me recommended oil types. It's going to give me the recommended viscosity. And it's not only going to do it for your engine oil. You look at the list, you notice it's going to tell you what coolant type and cooling system capacity, liters or quarts. It's going to give me power steering fluid, brake fluid, and on transmissions it will give me types and capacities also. This is a great feature, so it's going to automatically populate what you have. In this case, this vehicle takes 4.5 quarts of oil. So if I did not have my system set up to sell fractional quantities, then what the system will do is will round up or round down. Round up or round down. Let me explain that. Here I'm at saying 4.3 liters. If I did not have my inventory items set up to sell fractional, it's going to round down and sell 4. Here I have 4.5 quarts. If I did not have my fractional quantity set up, it will round up. So 0.5 and above will round up. Anything less than 0.5 will round down. Okay, so that's why it's able to pull this. Now, when I go do my inventory search for this item, and I actually select my oil, for it to maintain that fractional quantity is all dependent upon whether that item has the fractional quantity box checked or not. If I don't have that box checked, then it's going to round up or round down. So fractional quantities become fairly important. I'll tell you, just from my point of view, if I took this oil and put it on, and you didn't have fractional quantities, and you had 5 quarts, 5 liters of oil, I know what my vehicle holds, and that's going to be the first question I'm going to ask is, either you didn't put enough oil in or you put too much oil in. Whether that impacts you and your customer's relationship is up to you, but it is one of the things that I would certainly look at. Okay, so again, to set up fractional quantities, wherever you can get to the inventory item, whether it's right from the work order, okay, remember I have the ability to edit the item. I want to make sure that box is checked so that things work right at the work order level. Okay. Let's go back to the presentation for just a second. How do fractional quantities work? Pretty simple. Okay, we want to have the ability to sell less than a full unit, whether that's a quart of oil, a gallon of antifreeze, or a foot of heater hose. So usually fluids, bulk wires, bulk hoses, exhaust pipe, I see a lot of people, so you can break it down into fractional quantities. The catalog fluid capacity and viscosity is what I just showed you, and it works automatically when it is set up correctly. So on your service package line items, we need definitions for this to work for our oil, our coolant and antifreeze, transmission fluid. So it does require the definition at the service package. How to set up fractional quantities? Wherever you can get to the add or edit of a material item, check the box for cell fractional quantities. And if we don't have the box checked, it's either going to round up or round down.